I have two special guests with me this evening. I have Father Joe from St. Augustine Church, and I have Gail Wilson, we'll call you Gail, from Children's Hunger Alliance with us tonight. And we're going to be talking about hunger in the community this evening, which is a really interesting topic. I'm sure we're going to get educated tonight just like we did last week. So put your seatbelt on and let's get talking, because I like to talk. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
How you doing?
Thank you for having us.
Great. Welcome, Father. I'm going to start with you. Give a little bit of history about Father Joe. He's an advocate for the deaf and the mentally challenged, and he's the director of all the ministries at St. Augustine for 42 years. He's also head of the Hunger Center at St. Augustine Church, and it began to service impoverished immigrant communities and has become an outreach center for the last 50 years. So can you tell me what's your primary duties or functions at the Hunger Center at St. Augustine's?
Well, my primary duty, because I'm not a very good cook, so therefore I don't do the cooking of meals. Mine is to be able to make people feel welcome and invited to come to have a meal, an enjoyable meal, like they would with a family member, with their own families. And in some cases where there really isn't much of a family, we kind of hope that we can maybe take their place for a little while they have a meal together. And of course, my other situation or responsibility is to raise money for it as well, to be able to keep it going.
Great. That's very important, and it's always important. And we'll get to that later on in the show, so keep that in mind, everybody. Now, Gail, you're working with the Children's Hunger Alliance, and you're a dietitian, right?
Yes, I'm a licensed registered dietitian.
Great. So can you tell us what are your primary duties with the Children's Hunger Alliance?
My role as the manager of school breakfast and summer feeding is to work with all the school districts in Northeast Ohio. Mm-hmm. We like to increase breakfast participation. We look at students coming to school, especially those that don't have the traditional breakfast in the cafeteria because they come late. We look at trying to do a second chance breakfast for them so that they're nourished, because if a child is hungry, then a child can't learn.
Absolutely.
And we look at different feeding models in the school districts. We look at a grab and go breakfast, so as children enter the door, they can grab a breakfast and go straight to their class.
Oh, and they're allowed to eat the breakfast in
the classroom, right.
Great.
So we have several different feeding models that we like to get out there and let the schools know about. Mm-hmm. So all of them don't have to just be the traditional breakfast in the classroom, in the cafeteria.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good, because I did some research, so I'm going to give some figures and we're going to continue the discussion. The Northeast Coalition for the Homeless stated that 18% of the population of Cuyahoga County are living below the poverty line. So that's like 40% of the population in Cleveland alone are living below the poverty line. That's almost half. That's a lot. I'm sure a lot of people don't know that. That's a lot. And they said that also Ohio is the 6th highest rate for food insecurity in the United States of America. Ohio is the 6th highest rate of food insecurity. So these numbers are quite shocking, but because both of you work in this area, you probably know this already. Father, can you tell me, do you see a big difference in the families or the people that are coming to St. Augustine's for food now than you did just say 5 years ago? Is there a change in who's coming?
There's, if the term could be used, a development in who's coming in two ways. First, because we serve meals, 3 meals a day, we have a huge population of the homeless or people living by themselves. What's really increased for us is children, and children have increased primarily in the evening time when we have an evening meal. It's after they've been at school. The beautiful thing about it is we ask the parents or some guardian to come with the children. And that's brought their families to the meal also. That's a huge increase. We didn't realize it. For the longest time, we didn't serve an evening meal. And it was only one summer that we decided just to try it. And we couldn't get over it. We had a whole different population coming. It was families. It was much more families than we had during the day. During the day, we had isolated individuals. We had older people, the elderly. I couldn't get over the number of families, young families often, that came in the evening. Married couples, which was surprising because there's so many people that we serve where it's one parent raising children or grandparents raising children. So it's a tremendous increase, to me at least, of families seeking help. I'm very grateful that they do come for meals.
Yeah. Well, that's good that families have somewhere to go, because this is a serious issue. I'm going to talk to you, Gail. I'm sorry. I wanted to call you Gwen. I have too many names running through my head. I want to talk to you, Gail, about food insecurity. What's the difference between food insecurity and hunger? Because there is a difference. And even though we are talking about hunger in the community tonight, we're also going to focus on food insecurity. So explain what the difference is.
Okay, a food insecure household is where that person doesn't know where they're going to get their next meal. There's not nutritious food in the house for them to eat on a daily basis. 1 out of 5 children in Ohio live in food insecure households. Totally, there are over 500,000 children that don't know where their next meal is coming from. There are 5 of us in this room. That means one of us will not know when we're going to eat next, what we're going to eat next, and cannot nourish our bodies. So food insecurity is real, and it's very prevalent in Cuyahoga County.
Now, Father, you said that you see more families in the evening for meals. Now, you said that a lot of people are coming in and don't know where their meals are coming from. Do you find that there are more people who are headed by a single parent coming in, or just total, complete families are coming in?
I would say the single parent will always be the largest. I feel they are the largest because being single with that one person trying to provide for the whole family, they would be by far the largest. And very often that beautiful definition that Gail just gave fits perfectly into it, because they'll say things like this. I decided to come here this evening. It was very far away, but I still came this evening because I knew at least I'd get a meal for sure this evening. And they'd say there's some food at home, but not really anything nourishing for our children. So that's a fear that the whole family has. And especially, I think, the single person. I think they suffer the most. I'm so impressed by some of them because of the sacrifices they make and the way that they provide for their family. But I do feel that single will always outnumber the couples. The couples are there too because there's so many jobs that are such low-paying jobs.
Yes.
And there are so many situations where benefits are not available to them. And if you have an income coming in, your first thought is paying your rent.
Yes.
Your second thought is your utilities.
Utilities.
And then if you're able, then you go to things like food. But and now some families do it the other way. They start with food, and then they're desperate for rent and utilities, so they often come to us for that.
Yes.
Because they had worried about food first. And you have all sorts of arguments. What's the best thing to do? You worry about them losing their house if it's rent that they lack. And so I try to encourage them to come for the meals and encourage them to seek clothing from us and other places like us, rather than to go out and pay for it themselves.
So St. Augustine does offer clothing, help with financial situations, furniture, and do you offer...
As we get it, we send it.
Yes. And
we
so
have no place to really store a lot of it, so we usually have somebody in mind who's going to get that furniture or the appliances. And really, the generous people of this community make all of that possible. I really think
That's
so.
wonderful. That's wonderful. I know when I was a single parent, I had 2 children, and I had a pretty good paying job. It was when I was carrying mail for those 12 years. And I know I used to go to the grocery store after paying rent, after paying my bills, and all the fees for children activities. And I would go to the grocery store and I would have to add up all the way through the store,
Right.
and that's why now I can add up in my head so well and come out. I usually round up. I mean, these are the things that you learn how to do. And then you have to, as a single parent or as a person who doesn't have enough money to get all the nutritious items, you'll go to a store, and I'm not going to name any name, that has cheaper items. Like, just to have fruit for your
Yes.
child is a privilege when you don't have enough money to buy fruit. And that's something that a lot of people don't have time or money to get for their children. So to come to a meal where you have, a starch, you have a meat, you have fruit, you have
Yes.
milk, that's a blessing. That's a blessing, as you can see when you're talking about the people that come to St. Augustine's. Now, we're going to talk about food insecurity a little bit more. And feedingamerica.org says the food insecurity has the potential to be harmful to individuals of any age. And we talked about seniors earlier, but it can be especially devastating to children.
Absolutely.
And that's your area.
Right.
The USDA estimates that nearly 13 million children in the United States live in food insecure households. In America.
In America.
And what's so wild about it is that when I worked at a place where we had events, there was an enormous amount of food left over, and we were not allowed to give that food to homeless shelters or people who could use a meal because of laws, because of regulations. And it's just like, gee, they just would like to have something to eat. But back to the subject, I just thought about that. There's so much food is wasted in America. But explain to me what happens to the daily activity and the brain function of children who do not have food.
I'm glad you asked. Food insecure children face a greater challenge and risk physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, and they suffer academically. So their brain is not able to process what the teacher is teaching if in fact they come to school hungry, if in fact they have social, emotional, learning disabilities. There's a high incidence of obesity with food insecure children.
And why is that?
Because they don't eat right. They don't eat properly. They just eat anything. They're not getting the fresh fruits, the fresh vegetables. And vegetables of all colors, green, red, orange. They have a higher incidence of heart disease, diabetes, hypertension. So the whole child suffers because of food insecure households. That's why Children's Hunger Alliance networks with schools for breakfast, schools and community agencies to make sure that students are fed after school, because at school, kids come to school sometimes just for breakfast and lunch. That may be the only meal that they get that day.
Yes.
Monday morning breakfast may be the only meal that child has had since they left on Friday and had lunch. We have daycare homes, we have daycare providers. We make sure that a nourishing meal is fed to children and that they get some form of physical activity as well.
Now, I know that Children's Hunger Alliance works with the daycare centers, works with schools about good nutrition. But how do you teach good nutrition to families who just don't have the money to shop for, good nutritional foods? What do you do?
Well, good nutrition starts during pregnancy. And we're trying to reach young moms to teach them how to eat to nourish their babies so that the babies do have a chance, they come out healthy. And early childhood eating habits are important, they're critical. Eating habits are learned. So you're looking at a high incidence of poverty. You're looking at food deserts where parents don't have grocery stores that are right around the corner that sell fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, fresh meats.
Yes, yes.
So you're also looking at the cost of food. The fresher, the more nourishing, the higher the cost.
Yes.
So there are ways that you can teach parents to teach their children proper nutrition. Eating together at home is one of the biggest points that we try to make. Sit down to the table and eat. We need to come back to the table. We need to bring that home style meal back to the table. You can't sit as a parent and be eating potato chips and drinking a pop and think your child is going to eat applesauce or broccoli. You need to eat a nourishing meal together at the table. You need to make sure you have breakfast and lunch. You need to make sure that you're drinking low-fat milk and eating low-fat meats, not the high-processed meats all the time.
Now, the low-fat milk costs just the same as the 2% milk in the store. And a lot of people don't know that these low-fat milks and certain other things, they just pretty much cost the same as the high-fat content foods and high-fat content drinks. So you just have to look for them and, gauge your money accordingly.
And those are the kinds of things we try to educate parents on. A gallon of whole milk is the same as a gallon of 1% milk. Chicken without the skin will go just as far.
It's chicken with it.
Right. And so we try to educate parents on things of that nature.
Now, Father, when you cook meals at St. Augustine's, do you cook food that stretches and with the donations that you get, or do you try to, do they have a healthy eating plan for people? Because I know when you feed a lot of people.
And we have of course a cook who's in charge of the food itself, and we do menus each week, and we try to do that. About most of the daily meals we have at the Hunger Center are often food that's donated to us, but it's often donated by places that have special foods or foods available for people that are really good for their health. And so that's one thing that helps. Plus we order food that we feel is proper and is good food for them. And sometimes we have donated food that's available to everybody to just take with them. They're there for the meal. And then somebody might come in with vegetables or fruit. And above all, breads. We get really good breads from people, from some of these stores that really work with doing that. They don't get rid of it, they give it to us, and we're very grateful about that.
Great. I'm glad.
Around Thanksgiving time, we of course serve the traditional meal.
And we're going to talk about that.
But in all the other times, and throughout the year, we do try to serve meals. And of course, some people will complain if they're not the food they'd rather eat. And and you have all sorts of different challenges on. The other thing that helps us is some great volunteers. I know one Saturday volunteer, there's a woman who comes in and makes fresh soup every single Saturday.
From scratch.
And that's known all over the place. So people do come who would not normally come to the Hunger Center. They'll come for that soup. And that's a special gift she has. She's a great cook.
And that's every Saturday.
Just about every Saturday. Not every Saturday, but just
Almost
about
every Saturday.
Yeah.
Wow, because I know the Hunger Center, they do have a meal schedule, and we're going to put that up during the break and also at the end of the show. And the breakfast is at 7:30, right?
7:30 it starts.
And then you have a hot lunch at 11:30.
No.
And then dinner at 5 o'clock p.m.
Yeah, it tends to start more like 4:30 p.m. The only problem, that's one of the problems we have. We have people there very early, which
Oh.
is, and then we have the people there who are preparing the meals and they want to serve it early. They usually do that. So that works out pretty well for the most part. But we do have sometimes people, in fact, some people are very well known to us for coming in late. So we try to have a meal for them, and we deliver meals to right now on a daily basis to about 12 to 15, might be more than that by now. They call us, they say, we really can't get out. And so, okay, so we have two people who are very devoted to always delivering the meals to them, and they check on the people. And we try to send the supervisor of the hunger center to go out once in a while with the driver to meet the people and to see if they're okay, because, we're giving them meals. We don't know what else is going on in their life, so.
Wow, that's fabulous. St. Augustine's is doing a lot for not only the community, because they're located on West 14th Street, but apparently you're going out and servicing everybody around.
Well, at the holidays, the largest meals we serve are delivery meals. Just become that way. It's we used to be very strict on it, saying you really had to need it, us to deliver it. And then we thought, how can we give rules when we can't enforce them anyway, if somebody calls? So now people call and want to stay at home. So like we have so far 9,000 meals for Thanksgiving that are already that have already ordered them, and we have volunteers, wonderful volunteers. Hopefully, we'll have volunteers who will deliver them. That works out during that time also. We, as when we serve the poor, and we're primarily a food center.
Yes.
We also depend on and we work with the food banks around us.
Okay.
And part of it is we get a lot of donated items that we can't use in our cooked meal, but they can use in their food banks, and so we can donate it to them. And sometimes they do the same thing for us.
Great.
And so I think the working together, plus the wonderful people that support all of this, really does make Cleveland a wonderful place. If you need a meal in Cleveland, you really shouldn't. I mean, and I think it's important, if you can't get out to a meal, like you're not able to go, or even you and your children are not able to go, is to call places like us and ask us to come to you, ask someone to pick you up, or ask someone to bring you a meal, whatever the situation would be. Just the thought of somebody going hungry would be really devastating to us. And I know it still happens. And I know there's many other wonderful hunger centers too, but I know that that's always, the sad thing is that despite all the efforts you make, some people do go without, and that is still sad when that happens.
Yes, it is, because I know I put on my Facebook page today about noon. I said, "Did you eat today?" And I just put the question out there: did you eat today? Because it's something that I am blessed to say I never had to go without food. The simple little things, sometimes you say, boy, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. But I never had to go without food, or to go 2 days and think, gee, I wish I just had some crackers, to eat. Because anything to eat, when you're hungry, it's like a internal need that you have, and like you said, it affects the way you think.
Yes.
It affects the way you act. It affects your emotional state. It affects the way you learn. I mean, it's just, if you've never been hungry, I don't think you really understand how important this issue is, because no one should ever have to just not have food in America. It's bad enough that some people don't have housing in a cold situation like now, and there's empty buildings everywhere, and that's a whole nother show, so I'm not going to go into that. But the fact that there's so many people who just need a meal, and it could change your life. It could change your life. Like you said, you see people come in and they might have a can of beans at home or a bag of rice, but they can come into St. Augustine's with their children as a family and sit down to a really good meal. And it gives you enough confidence to go out and try to get something done another day. Do you see that, Father?
I think it does. And I also think you have, you have an interesting group. You have people who come regularly to the Hunger Center, to our center, and to others. And there's a certain group that always comes, and that becomes like the community that kind of the others build around. Some people come rarely, once in a great while. And the same thing with families. Some families come every single day, and then some families come when they're able, and others come once in a while when things run low. That's very helpful to see that happening. And but we still worry about the ones that we don't reach, and then the ones who finally come when they absolutely have to. Some people will call me, they'll want something like food cards because they don't want to come to the center to be part of that.
Oh.
And so we often try to give them that because they feel that they're stigmatized when they come to the center.
Yes.
And we hope, that's why we even had a hard time with the word Hunger Center because we really wanted to make it, we tried to make it the name Family Center, just never lasted, but but we wanted to be a place where people just feel welcome, and anyone can come in for a meal. You could be a millionaire and come in for a meal. We're not,
Yeah.
Of course, if you're a millionaire and come in for a meal, we'd like a donation.
Donate. That's what I was thinking. Make
Absolutely.
a donation as you
There was a gentleman who's passed away since, who every single day came for a meal, and he was an obviously well-to-do gentleman. Every single day he left $20 for every meal he came to.
Wonderful.
He came to 3 meals a day, and he did that every single day. We said, well, it's not necessary to leave us money for this. And he'd say, no, he said, I've come to eat. I can sit and talk to people. I'm all alone. There's no one in my life. I don't cook. And he said, so that's why I come. It makes me think, too, that might be another group, too, especially among the elderly, where they don't cook or they don't shop properly or they don't provide that for themselves. And so some people go with 1 meal a day or maybe 2 meals a day or maybe without any. And to be aware of that, too, and to try to make them feel more invited. That's a concern I have.
Yeah, because if you don't know, there are some people that are elderly that have to decide if they're going to eat or they're going to get their medications or if they're going to pay their rent. And to have those kind of decisions in front of you at an age of 79, 80 years old, after you've worked and taken care of people and raised people, and now you're living on a fixed income because sadly our government is cutting a lot of the Social Security benefits, cutting a lot of the Medicare benefits, and the
Food stamps.
Food stamps. Oh my
yes,
goodness,
for sure.
the income to get food stamps for a family of 4, is it $2,000?
It's about that.
About
yeah.
$2,000. Is
Now-
it a year?
That may be a month.
A month.
There's
I
a
was gonna say, it
weekly
must be
amount, a monthly amount, and an annual amount. Now, Terry, there's a stigma with students eating in the school. They don't want to appear to be needy and hungry. And so what they do is sometimes you see them come in and they just socialize so that their friends don't know that they're hungry. Then they go to class, and because they're hungry, there's a rippling effect in the class. Discipline problems, going to the nurse. Sometimes they will say, Miss So-and-so, tell their teacher they didn't eat. Can I go downstairs and get something to eat? I've seen kids come back to the cafeteria that sat there and socialized the whole time and then say, can I have something to eat? And then eat. And say, can I have seconds, and eat seconds.
yes.
Now, if they ask for thirds, I would always ask, well, why do you want thirds? Well, can I take this home to my sister?
Yes, I was gonna
So
say for
it's
the
not
siblings.
just the elderly that struggle with decision making in terms of rent and medicine. There are young families that struggle with those same decisions. Do I get medicine for my kids? Do I take them to the doctor, have to bus fare? Do I buy food? So when you're hungry and there's food insecurity out there, all families struggle with that.
So it is a ripple effect
Yeah.
with all families. And that's why I felt it's so important to talk about this topic, because there are some of us who can help. we're going to talk about in the second half of the show how you can help with these two organizations and what you can do for other organizations too, because we are our brother's keeper, I believe. I believe too much is given, much is required. And if you don't know there's a need, it's different. But when you know there's a need and you can help in any kind of way, and most of the time, it's like you see the commercials on TV, 30 cents a day.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you know, give up one day of Starbucks.
Right.
Because that's
right.
like $5.
Yeah.
It's not 30 cents. But just think about that. While we're going to go to commercial and show you some information about St. Augustine's and also about Children's Hunger Alliance. And we will be back in about 30 seconds, I believe. So get a snack or just watch the information come across the screen and write it down and make a phone call. We'll be right back.
Terry, you were asking how can we teach families what to feed their kids?
Yes.
One thing that Children's Hunger Alliance does is for the daycare providers that are in the centers or in the homes, we have templates that the menu is planned by, and the specialists that go out in the field and work with those providers make sure that they follow the USDA regulations for daycare homes and centers. And in the templates, they can put down the meat, the starch, the vegetable. If there are any allergies that they need to be aware of, they can use a template specific to that as well.
And information is on the Children's Hunger Alliance website?
Well, yes, and it's what our specialists do when they're working with daycare centers and homes. So
Okay.
all of our meal requirements have to meet USDA standards.
Okay.
Just like school breakfast and national school lunch meet USDA standards.
Yes.
After school snack meets USDA standards. There are USDA standards that are met in the daycare centers and homes. And that's a way also of educating parents as to what they can eat, feed their kids, and choose wisely and make sure that what they're eating is nutritious.
That's really great. That's something I did not know. Now, daycare center owners and in the home daycare centers can get information from Children's Hunger Alliance with templates, you said.
Yes, and they get a lot of training. They get a lot of training from Children's Hunger Alliance. The after-school specialist trains annually, goes out and monitors 3 times a year to make sure that they're following the meal requirements that are set forth by USDA. So we do a lot of training, we do a lot of teaching, we do training with nutrition and physical education activities.
Wow. So is there a cost for this training, or is it paid for by donations? How can someone get this training and
Well,
pay
you
for
have
it?
to be a daycare home provider or
Yes.
center provider to get the training, and there is no cost on their part. CHA covers the cost in doing the training, and we have about 50 passionate people that work statewide in all 88 counties to make sure that we're getting the message out, we're teaching, we're training. When the school breakfast specialists go out into the centers, they look at each school individually to make sure that perhaps your school can do breakfast in the classroom,
Okay.
but my school cannot. Maybe they need to do a grab and go breakfast. We look at the tardy rates of the schools. Maybe your school needs to concentrate on a second chance breakfast because students are coming in
Later.
a lot later, or 70% of the students are coming in later. The elementary kids are generally bused, so they probably get there in a timely fashion. Middle school and high school is where you see the problem in terms of breakfast in the school. And then the schools that have after-school activities or community centers or recreation centers that have after-school activities, we make sure those kids are fed too. So we recruit sites where we can feed kids. And if we can't feed kids, then our CEO is passionate about us looking for other avenues for them to be fed. If there's a center where it doesn't qualify economically for CHA to feed the kids in an after-school setting, they'll say reach out to a school district and see if a school district will feed them, or reach out to, a faith-based, we've reached out to faith-based organizations. So they just want to make sure kids are fed.
Now this is news to me, and anyone who is watching that has a daycare center or is the principal of a school or a home-based daycare, this is great information. CHA,
Yeah, Children's Hunger Alliance.
they offer training. They offer specialists to look at your individual situation that you have going on. They have several different opportunities to fix, like a breakfast, a grab and go, a lunch program, an after school program. They have several different ways to help you feed the students or the children that you're servicing.
And we do look at the economic disadvantage factor. We look
Yes.
at 50% of those students or those homes being in census tract areas where we know there's a economic disadvantage.
Wow. So get this education, everyone. This is really good news.
Yeah,
I'm
and-
so glad you came, because a lot of people don't realize there is help
There
out
is
there.
help out there. There is help. There is help in terms of teaching, training, providing. There is help.
Yes. Well, I think that's fabulous. And like I said, if you didn't catch any of the numbers at the break, they will be shown again at the end of the show. Please write the numbers down. If you know someone who's trying to help, who has a need, give them the information. Just make a call.
Yeah.
And you will, or and whoever answers the phone will direct them to whoever they need to talk about.
Yes,
talk to.
with over the 500,000 children that are food insecure in Ohio, Children's Hunger Alliance served over 7 million healthy meals and snacks. So we're out there. We're out there in all 88 counties.
And now is the time to get involved with the summer programs, because that's when a lot of
absolutely.
people, a lot of
Yeah.
children do not get to eat in the summer. So it's not too early to make that call and get the information and get the training, so that when summer comes, your program is in place, you've been trained, and you have the help to find out where, how to feed children.
I'm glad you brought up summer feeding. Children's Hunger Alliance works with other advocacy groups that provide us grant money, and we provide grant money to organizations that want to have a summer feeding program, that's never had a summer feeding program, or that wants to add an additional site. So you're right. When school is out, there is a greater need for feeding.
Yes. And don't wait until school's almost out.
Right.
You can call now and get the information and
Absolutely.
get started. So St. Augustine's might want to give Children's Hunger.
Actually, we run a camp during the summer, Augustine Rainbow Camp. We already benefit from the that very same program. But what we never did until, as you explained to us now, is we didn't do a breakfast. We always had a lunch. We didn't realize we had breakfast at the center, but we could really ask for breakfast too. And I know that's through the same group. We have about 185 children who come for that.
Wow.
And many of them with disabilities. But it's such of a help, and she's absolutely right. In fact, what Gail just said now reminded me, on Saturday mornings, you know, we don't have children in big numbers coming on that day, but that's a day when there's no school.
Right.
And maybe we have to emphasize that and work at that. And learn
Yeah.
from, it's great to learn from Gail some of the thoughts that can happen.
One other thing we like to see agencies do with summer feeding is not serve breakfast at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. We do want the students to sleep in, enjoy their evening and sleep in. We encourage them to serve breakfast at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and then serve supper at 3:30 or 4. So we do look at times also.
That's a good point.
That's
No,
different. That
it
makes
really
good
is.
sense.
Yeah, and the participation rate increases when you change the times.
Wow. Well, I'm just blown away. I'm sitting here. I know I have to keep on with the show, but this is such good information. And I just realized that some people really don't know that they can get help and train to help. You know, sometimes you're out there doing it on your own, and you don't
Yes.
realize that there are organizations like Children's Hunger Alliance where it's their sole purpose to give the help, to teach, to train, to see where there's a need, and to adjust the teaching if the need calls for it.
Absolutely.
So that's just wonderful. That's wonderful. So like I said, at the end of the show, we're going to have that information. Now, we cannot end this show without talking about Thanksgiving dinner at St. Augustine.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big
do.
deal.
Yes.
And those who do not know about St. Augustine's Thanksgiving dinner, I don't know where you've been or what rock you've been hiding under, because everybody knows about it. And I just want to let Father talk about it and tell us what it's about, and of course how you can help if you have a desire to help, and what's going on, Father, with Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, we've been doing this for years. Actually, we started off, we used to be a commodity distribution where we would give away, it was less than so many in the family they gave you. I think if you had less than 6 in the family, you got 2 chickens and this entire meal that was given to you. Everybody had more than 6 people in their family, and it never came from me. So then we decided, well, then we tried, and we kept running out of, we just couldn't support it.
Yeah.
So we decided to do the meal. It was a very reluctant decision. We always served a little meal. And what we didn't realize, even when we started serving the meal, is that people wanted their terms in terms of the meal, not just our terms, because it's a holiday. They bring their family together. It's the only holiday that every faith, every background, everyone celebrates. So we started off with our own center, and then we began to expand it to the churches of Tremont. There's quite a few churches in Tremont. They joined with us in using their halls. Then it moved out to throughout the whole city. And now on that day, meals are served in about 14 centers, including out in Vermilion, out in Youngstown. Now, some of the meals are served the day before, but most meals are served on that day. And on that day, we deliver as best we can everywhere that we can. So people call in to our number, which will be shown at the end also.
Yes.
And They just have to register for the meal, to give us if possible, the right address, so that we can find it, and then we can deliver the meal, and then the other thing we really need are volunteers, primarily people who will deliver meals. Most of the centers, for some reason, get the same volunteers back every year, and they'll come there. And some of the centers are not real happy about other volunteers joining them. Sometimes they are. We don't even assign anybody to St. Augustine Center because we'll have so many volunteers that just walk in on that day that they will do it.
So you can just walk in on Thanksgiving
Well,
Day.
you're not supposed to, but you
Okay.
can. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, we serve a breakfast early in the morning. We do that at Merrick House, the Merrick House in Tremont.
Okay.
And usually that's for the people most of the people come to that are in the shelters downtown.
Okay.
And a bus company donates its bus, pick up all the people, they bring them in for the meal, and then, I don't know how they do this, they go from that meal. Now, they really should wait till 3:30, you're right about that. They go from that meal to the next meal. It's incredible. One bus driver made the mistake of starting to drive them home that day. They corrected him.
Oh my goodness.
They went
Because
back.
there's
They
places
went back,
all
got
over.
in line, and they went for the second meal. And then people take meals home with them too, and that's fine too. You know, that's a thing you always remember about delivery of meals. You might need one meal now, but you're going to need a meal later. And it may be the
Yes.
same thing, but you still need a meal later, so you give it to them. One lady one year called us constantly saying we missed her. And we kept sending all these different people out, and they couldn't find her. They did find her. They kept saying, well, I did deliver her a meal. She said, well, she has nothing in the house. Finally, one driver went out, and we said, would you call us and let us know what happens? He goes in, and she's excited to see the meal come. And somehow or another, he had a chance to look in her refrigerator. All the other meals were in there, but that's all she had in the refrigerator was a delivered meal. And so, and reminded us again, and she had come up with her way of maybe providing food for what she thought would be the next few days.
Yeah.
But you know, it's so important, at least on that day, that everybody in our community be able to share with their family, with their friends, an opportunity to really thank God for all God does for us.
Yes.
And we do the same thing at Christmas. We do the same thing at Easter.
My.
And we're so blessed that people of different faith backgrounds who do not celebrate, say, Christmas and Easter with us, will still come and prepare meals for other people. And that's kind of beautiful that they would do that.
That is.
But we've been cooking turkeys since October 1st, right up. We're still cooking turkeys, so that we'll have enough to go out. That's how we do. We cook it, we freeze it, we then prepare them afterwards, and then we're all set to go. Because you couldn't do all the turkeys on the one day.
No.
But
I can't imagine.
And so for us, this has been, and it's a wonderful day really of service. And we always miss people. You know, we always have people who call and say, well, I did register, and of course they didn't. But that's okay, because we try to serve them as best we can.
Yeah.
And then some people call in very late in the day. And there's even a third meal that's given over at St. Boniface Church on West 54th Street that's done towards the evening time.
Okay.
I don't know how many they tell me a lot of people come to that, so I don't know what they do with that. But we're so very, very proud of the churches that assist us, and also the people, the volunteers. It's just a wonderful community. But we are concerned that people who need a meal get a meal.
Yes.
And people who are alone, that they get a meal. The people who feel they have no reason to thank God for anything, that they have a reason to thank God that day.
Yes.
So that's our hope.
Yes, breaking bread together.
Yes.
You know, breaking bread together. It's a meaningful gesture, and something that is so simple means a lot
Yes.
on that day. Like you said, people of different faiths, they come together, work together, share stories together, and just love on each other for
Yeah.
one day. And it's amazing that in all the turmoil going on in the world, that a meal can just bring everybody together.
Oh, it does.
Yes.
It's a wonderful thing to see.
There are a lot of positive social, emotional learning activities that come out when kids sit down and eat together.
Yes.
So it's very, very important that you break bread together.
Yes. Yes. So we're going to work together to try to take the stigma away from being hungry. You know, everybody should take up this cross and work towards making sure everyone can have a meal sometimes. You know, if not, but just once a day to have a meal, because your physical body and your mental body and your spiritual body
Yes.
needs to be fed in order to function properly. A lot of times you see people and you wonder what's going on with them. It could be simply that they have not had any nourishment.
Right.
And it does affect the way your brain works, and it affects your heart. You know, like you said, on Thanksgiving, everyone is working together and sharing, and some people would think it can't happen, like the billionaire that comes and sit down because he just wants company.
Yeah.
You know, and so money is not all things, you know, but to have company and to share. So I just applaud St. Augustine's and Children's Hunger Alliance for all that you all do. And I'm glad that you came tonight so that people can know what's going on in the community. And I ask that you watch to the end of the show to get the numbers to call, to find out how you can volunteer for St. Augustine's, to find out how you can send donations of cash or check or whatever, to find out how you can send food, because like Father said, they've been cooking turkeys for a month or two, you know, just to feed this enormous amount of people on Thanksgiving Day. So if you get a free turkey at work and you don't need it, drop it off at St. Augustine's, because they can use it. They can use it. I know when I get a free turkey, and I'm thinking, because I don't cook turkey, I order mine from Honey Baked Ham. I can't touch the turkey. I know it's a long story, but I order mine. So if I get a free turkey now, I'm not going to wonder who to give this turkey to. I'm going to send it to St. Augustine's, because some people will have the turkey in their freezer and next Thanksgiving will come and it will still be in the freezer, but they'll take it because it's free. So I know now what I can do with my free turkey if I get one. And that's what I ask for everyone to do. And the stigma of being hungry is should go away. Just like we talked about last week, these stigmas, when it
Yeah.
could be you at any time.
Yeah.
You know, it could be me at any time. And even if it's not me, I'm grateful enough to know better than to act like someone has a problem because they can't feed themselves. And I remember when I worked downtown and I used to see the person begging on the corner of 9th and Ontario. There was one person, and I was having a bad morning, and I remember saying there was a man that asked me for money, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I felt so annoyed that this man, because there's so many women I know that just go hungry to feed their family. Men do too, I'm sure. But I was so annoyed, and then I went, oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed, but I'm just telling the truth. I went out for lunch that day, and the same man was out there, and he looked at me, and I said, oh boy. I felt, I was thinking, okay, this is the same person I was kind of curt with earlier. And so I said, you know what, if I get a Subway sandwich, can I give you half of it? Would you take it? And he said, yes, I would. And so I went into the Subway and ordered a sandwich and gave him half. I got a foot long and gave him half. And he just lit up. And I'm thinking all this time, he's begging for money. And I'm thinking, you want money, we're thinking, what are you doing with my money? Like it's my money when,
Yeah.
I know that it's not my money. But the fact that his face lit up when he got that half a Subway sandwich had to make me realize that, you know what, I didn't have a problem going to Subway. I just was thinking that day, what do I want to eat for lunch? And there's 5 or 10 different places right there by Public Square. So it kind of humbled me a little bit and got me off of my high horse and realize that, you know what, if you have a problem giving money to someone who's begging, go buy them something to eat and give that to them. You never
Tara,
know.
speaking of lunch, I want to talk about one of the fundraisers that's an annual fundraiser that Children's Hunger Alliance has.
Okay.
It's called the Lunch Money Challenge.
Oh, yes.
And what we ask is that companies ask their employees, instead of spending $5 at Starbucks or $6 at Subway, the average people spend on lunch sometimes can be $11.40 or more, right? So you bring your lunch from home and take the money that you would have spent for lunch and donate it to Children's Hunger Alliance so that we can that helps with the cause of feeding the underserved children. You get a lunch box that is co-branded. It has our Cigna on it and yours. So it's a nice way to give back. So it's called the Lunch Money Challenge. You can go to our website, children'shungeralliance.org, and sign up for it. And that's a way of giving back.
That's wonderful. So remember that, everybody, the Lunch Money Challenge
Yes.
on the Children's Hunger Alliance. And also remember about Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving meal at St. Augustine's. They still need volunteers. They need people that are willing to drive meals to people. And like he said, like Father said, you'd be surprised how many people look for that meal on Thanksgiving Day that can't make it to the church. But if you can make it to the church, come and have a meal at the church, or come and bring food so that you can help everyone else eat.
It's even better if you come to the church. I think you get a better deal if you come to the church than the delivery. Delivery is great, but if you come to the church, you get that, and you never know. We have extra things. Sometimes we give away. We get toys. We get other things that are given to us.
Good.
So if you come to one of the centers, you probably get a better deal.
All right.
Bring
So
the
there
whole
you go.
family.
There you go. Okay, that's our show for tonight, everybody. But I just want to thank my guests, Gail Wilson,
Thank you for having us.
and I'd like to thank you, Father Joe, for coming also.
My honor.
Both of these people work for great organizations, and I just ask that you stay and watch the credits so that you can get the information that you need to help, to volunteer, to get help, and to just be a part of giving back. It's the season for it, so let's all try to do something. There's something everybody can do. So just like Nike says, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Thanks again. Now, next week, we're going to have artistic youth in the community. And we have some great young people and some interesting accomplishments, from poetry to dance to education. So be sure to tune in, 7:30 on Thursday for Tara's Table Talk. Be careful out there and go Steelers. I'm sorry. I'm from Pittsburgh. Okay, go Browns.
Go Steelers.